The show starts after this.
Are you looking for medical marijuana professionals in Michigan and do not know where to turn? Visit mmma.biz. For a directory listing of products and services, search through the medical marijuana businesses at mmma.biz. That's mmma.biz.
This is the Political Twist-Up Show. PoliticalTwistUp.com if you didn't know. Here to put you in the zone. Dealing with real issues, real relevant on the real radio. Political Twist-Up Show. Political Twist-Up Show. Political Twist-Up Show. You're cooling out with the Political Twist-Up Show. Political Twist-Up Show. It's the Political Twist-Up Show.
I'm taking over my body, back in control, no more shoddy. I bet a lot of me was lost.
Live from the Iron Labs studio, powered by the Metro Detroit Compassion Club. We are at Iron Labs. It's the Political Twist-Up Show, Saturday. Today's what date is today, guys? I don't. It's like
20th.
It is the 20th.
It is.
You guys are gonna have to share that mic out.
We like sharing.
Yeah, it's a good thing. Welcome to the show, guys. I'm Steve Green, caregiver, patient, host. With us on the program, as always, Rick Thompson, our co-host.
Hello.
And our show producer, Ryan Bringold.
Hello.
And we are here today to discuss a whole bunch of stuff. Let me just run down what we got for you today. First off, we wanted to talk to Kris Hermes about the ASA thing. ASA's got some stuff going on. They're actually taking the appeals court, the Court of Appeals decision that was made. I'm sorry. It was a federal Court of Appeals decision on their rescheduling issue, and they denied it and actually made it very difficult. They raised the bar on what is efficacy, right?
Mm-hmm. And Kris Hermes from Americans for Safe Access will be here to talk to us about that too.
Your mic's a little hot. Let me turn you down a little bit, Mike. I just want people to be able to hear you. So we got that going on. Kris will be on in just a few minutes, just a few seconds. In fact, he's on the phone. We got to plug him in. Also, coming up on the program today, Barb Agro, yes?
That's true. In our third segment, we'll be talking about Barb Agro, her case that's coming back from the Court of Appeals into Oakland County, and her attorney, Paul Tylenda, will be addressing us with the concerns about that.
It's always good to hear from Barb Agro. I mean, it's like having family here, really.
She really is. And in her place, it's Paul Tylenda, who does not look like Barb Agro, but is just as comfortable as she is.
That would be funny. Paul dressed up as Barb. That'd be good Halloween.
Wow. Mental image I cannot scrub.
Yeah, that was the intention. I like doing that. So anyway,
thank you.
Dirty up the mind.
And in the most important segment, in the longest segment of our show today, we're going to have...
we're going to be talking about this whole business that's been rolling on for the past couple of weeks with regards to the State Court of Appeals and their decision with regards to medibles and specifically the effect on concentrates.
It's the People versus Carruthers case, very recent, just came down, and it seems to differentiate regular cannabis leaf from any concentrates or extracts. Seems rather unique.
What happened? Camera's off.
We're good.
Camera's down.
We're good. Everything's fine.
Oh, we're back.
Yes, we're all good. He just took a still shot. It's okay. It's allowed. All right, so we're doing good.
No, it's not allowed. This is video. We keep the video. So anyway, So we got that going on, and then of course LJ. Always got LJ, our Ask the Gardener
from Advanced Nutrients, straight from California. You can't get any more authoritative than Advanced Nutrients on the subject.
Try and talk about some important gardening stuff. Let's get right to it, shall we? Because we have absolutely no time to waste. Let me see if I can't.
Americans for Safe Access is a nationwide organization that fights for people to have safe access to their medicine, so that they don't have to obtain it from the black market. And I believe
national nonprofit
with a Michigan chapter that I'm proud to be on the board of directors of. And on the phone with us right now, Kris Hermes from Americans for Safe Access. Kris, welcome.
Can you hear us, Kris? Uh-oh. There we go. Try it now. Can you hear us, Kris?
Yeah, I can now.
Okay.
Fantastic.
It's a little bit faint, but that's the best we got to work with at the moment. So, Kris, tell us what's going on with ASA. They did filing last week, yes? They filed at the Supreme Court?
Yes, we did. On July 15th, on Monday, we filed a petition for the Supreme Court to hear our appeal on the rescheduling case, ASA versus Drug Enforcement Administration. And we're going to have to wait until we hear back from the Supreme Court as to whether or not they're going to review the case.
Now,
essentially, this is an appeal of a decision by the D.C. Circuit that granted standing in our case. They said we were able to sue the federal government, but then denied us on the merits, and said that we hadn't attained a particular standard for medical efficacy. Now, the standard was new, unprecedented, and fairly unreasonable by saying that we need to show by stage 2 and stage 3 clinical trials that are normally conducted by companies trying to market new drugs. Only then will we be able to satisfy the standard of what can show medical efficacy for smoked marijuana. So it's an extremely high bar. We're appealing to overturn that standard, which incidentally conflicts with another.
Sorry, okay, you can hear us. Even if I turn the mic down, you can hear us, Kris. I was talking to Ryan off air about some monitor issues. Keep going. Go ahead. You were saying.
Yeah, just that the case conflicts with another appellate case from the 80s, Grinspoon versus DEA, which says that you don't need an FDA marketing trial in order to prove medical efficacy. So we'll see what the U.S. Supreme Court does at this point.
You know, this ruling, can you tell us why you're trying to go after this rescheduling issue? Tell people why that's so important, please.
Why it's so important for patients and the medical marijuana community.
Yes, patients and caregivers. Patients and caregivers specifically.
Well, I mean, so what we have is an intolerant federal government that still believes marijuana is a dangerous drug, one of the most dangerous drugs with no medical value. And what we've seen over the past 15 years is states more and more passing laws to legalize medical marijuana at the state level. That's fine, and we can go about changing our public health laws state by state, but at some point the federal government has to recognize marijuana's medical value because so much stigma and discrimination emanates from federal policy. It's difficult to do research on marijuana for therapeutic use, and the enforcement campaign that the federal government has embarked on, especially under the Obama administration, is very aggressive, and federal law allows them to do that, only because the federal government doesn't recognize it has medical use. So I think that we'd see a change in two different areas very significantly. One is on the enforcement front. I think we'd see a lot less raids and a lot less prosecutions, but also we'd see an expansion of research, and those are the two main reasons why we would want to reschedule.
Now, the significance of leading up to this point, there's a lot of stuff happened getting to this point. It was very disappointing when the Court of Appeals, it was just this spring, wasn't it? Made the decision?
Yeah, it was in January.
Yeah.
That they denied our appeal.
So it was in the winter. and the denial was pretty steadfast and hammered down. And now you guys are appealing this to the Supreme Court. What do you think? I mean, if you're reading the tea leaves or rolling the dice, what do you think your chances of getting something done at that level are? I know that's a crazy question, but
we've seen more than 40 years of a very aggressive war on drugs, which is really a war on the American people. But the federal government shows no sign of easing up, and in fact, under the Obama administration, has shown signs of increased aggression. And so it's a very politicized issue. Millions and millions of dollars are spent each year by the Justice Department to enforce these federal marijuana laws. And I think it's a cultural issue. It's at some level a moral issue. And unfortunately, people aren't looking at it like a public health issue. If they were, I think we'd be addressing this in a very different way. But I think the effort is just to suppress any kind of reform around marijuana and to use different tactics in order to achieve that.
So you have to put up with the sirens. We're out here live on location at Iron Labs talking about stuff today. Sirens going by, a little fire action. So,
but Kris, this is really a success story just getting to this point, because there's been issues about standing. Other agencies that have tried to take the DEA to court have been ruled not to have standing, but that's not the case here. It took 7 or 8 years in order to get to this level, and it was only at your prompting that they finally took action in giving the decision that they did, which prompted this appeal. Isn't that correct?
Right. Actually, it's been more than 10 years now. The original petition was filed in 2002, and after nearly 9 years, with no word from the federal government, we filed a lawsuit for unreasonable delay. Less than a month later, the DEA answered our petition. It denied it, but it answered it, and then we had the ammunition to go into federal court and appeal that denial, which we did. And you're right that we did get an unprecedented ruling in the sense that we were granted standing in the case. So we're inching forward. Still, the D.C. Circuit has set such a high bar for what can show or prove medical efficacy that we need to address that. I might also add that
Kris, we got to go break. We're out of time. Sorry, I'm sorry, man. If people want to get a hold of you, ASA.com, yes? No, what is that?
SafeAccessNow.com.
SafeAccess.com.
Got to run. We'll talk to you soon.
Stop show. Well, this formula is specifically to grow cannabis.
That's Ray Kogo for Kogo's Original Cannabis Formula Nutrients.
Now, everybody knows that large buds and tight buds come from genetics, and then the amount of light you use. The other part is having the correct nutrients that the plant's going to use. Mine specifically to grow cannabis, so it's going to get everything that it needs.
Ray knows what you may not. Those nutrient companies you can get in most grow shops are not cannabis specific. That means they take the stuff out of the bloom that your plant needs in bloom. You can get Kogo's Original Cannabis Formula Nutrients too. It's just 2 1-gallon jugs that make over 600 gallons of nutrients, all for less than $100. See the difference for yourself.
More trichomes, bigger buds, faster growth, and for less money.
Go to CANNABISformula.com or call Ray direct at 517-375-8998. That's 517-375-8998. Kogo's Original Cannabis Formula Nutrients.
If you or someone you know received a traffic ticket, has been charged with a misdemeanor, drinking and driving, criminal offense, or has had their driver's license taken away, they need an attorney. They need attorney Glenn McCandless. He's helped hundreds of people solve their legal problems over the past 16 years.
My law firm is dedicated to providing quality legal services at affordable rates.
Call us at 586-755-2900. Again, that's 586-755-2900. Call now.
Are you looking for medical marijuana professionals in Michigan and do not know where to turn? Visit mmma.biz. For a directory listing of products and services, search through the medical marijuana businesses at mmma.biz. That's mmma.biz.
Get everything you need at Hydrovision Indoor Gardening Centers. It's summertime, and the best of what you need for indoor and outdoor gardening is at your local Hydrovision store, where your indoor gardening dreams come true outside, too. Equipment and supplies, they got it. Nearby locations, they got it. And the friendly, helpful staff is full of answers to all your gardening needs. Hydrovision. Get great prices. Mention my name, Steve Green, for a special discount. Hydrovision Indoor Gardening Centers in Howell, Fenton, Richmond, Trenton, and Belleville, one near you, or go to myhydrovision.com.
The Political Twist Up Radio Show.
Okay, no time to waste. Thanks for joining us on the Political Twist Up Show. You'll find us on politicaltwistup.com or right here on WFNT in Flint every Saturday from 3 until 4 p.m. Steve Green, Ryan Bringo, Rick Thompson here at the Iron Labs studio, actually at Iron Labs on site, right out in front of the building here in beautiful Walled Lake, Michigan. Look, the significance of this ruling with the courts on concentrates has giant impact. With us on the program from Iron Labs is Jim. Joe. Good Lord. You always let you introduce people from now on, Ryan, because I'm just a total dork like that. Go ahead. Sorry, Joe. So, yeah, you're up, buddy.
Hey, how you doing?
So we're talking about this business with the ruling. Can you tell us, have you had people calling about this already? Have you had people calling up Iron Labs asking about what's this with concentrates? Can I still get them tested?
Well, you still can have them tested. I don't really know what the legality of selling them, but if you're making something and you're using it for yourself, it does still fall under the Section 8 where you
need your defense in court.
Yeah, you need your defense in court, but unfortunately, you have to go to court in order to do that.
Well, and recently they just ruled that I don't know. That's another ruling that happened at the same time as the medibles ruling happened, same week last week.
Ultimately, what it comes down to is if you think it's a medicine that you need to be consuming for your needs, it's kind of at your own discretion whether or not you want to carry it and take the risk. But you should still have it tested, and still have your medicine that you're consuming. At least know what you're taking. Because there is a variability in that.
When people get concentrates tested, they're doing it for a reason, aren't they?
Exactly. They want to know how much medicine they're taking. They don't want to essentially
overdo it or
overdo it, or essentially walk around with more than they need or more than someone would assume they need because they have to carry extra because it doesn't work because it's not strong enough or something.
Or you need CBD versus THC. Some people have that going on.
Yeah, it's really important to find those CBD strains because if you want a medicine that doesn't have psychoactive effects, doesn't get you high, that is actually legal. Finding those strains of marijuana that don't produce THC, that don't get you high, that would technically, I guess, not be considered marijuana at that point.
Well, I guess if it had no THC in it, or very, below
very little.
Actually, there's 0.08% or something. I think then it's considered hemp.
Yep, exactly.
So if you can get the number down, if you can breed it down where you can get the number below that, and I know that people are trying to do that right now.
Exactly. I've actually tested several strains that are, they bring it in. Oh, I test my marijuana strain, but it turns out it's not really marijuana once you get the results in because there's not enough THC in there to make for the classification wise between hemp and cannabis.
So, we were talking about what this means, what the court ruling means, and I know you're not a lawyer. You're the testing guy. You're the guy. You're a scientist. Which part of the science do you do, Joe?
I do all the chemical analysis, developing the methods and stuff along those lines, and just maintenance of the machines and making sure that everything is very, very finely tuned. My expertise comes in managing labs along those lines. So that's what I bring to the table. But my personal outlook on this particular ruling is that. It still really loosely interprets what an edible is and a brownie. And in this case, I think it was just a matter of the way it was produced. Doesn't mean that brownies themselves aren't considered usable marijuana. They can be if it's produced in the appropriate manner.
And the appropriate manner in this case would be dried flower or leaf.
Yeah, and it's just a matter of time before people learn and change their ways of making these edible preparations of usable marijuana. And in that sense, it's just a matter of they don't want you extracting THC from the resin. If you're using the plant and getting your resin from the plant in while you're preparing it, it should still can technically be considered usable marijuana.
It should. It's something they definitely left out by accident, I think, or by omission. I don't think it was a mistake. Or I think it was a mistake. I think it was just an oversight, in my opinion. Because I know the people who drew this up, and I just don't think that they were intending to leave that out.
I think it's lack of education on the topic. Once again, we have a law that's being implemented or a ruling, and the people that are making that ruling aren't educated in all aspects of...
No, they don't need to be educated in all the aspects of. All they need to know is definition. That's all they deal with is, what does this mean? I mean, that's all that really courts do. They just kind of define things.
Well, I think that's why you get some unfair rulings and some questionable rulings. You have to bring in that human element.
If you follow what they did, I have to say that the Court of Appeals, even though I don't agree with their ruling, I don't like their ruling. There is a definite difference between what they call marijuana in the Act and what they call usable marijuana in the Act. And usable marijuana only refers to your weight, the amount of weight that you can have on hand without having to go to Section 8 from Section 4. Section 4 being your protection against arrest and prosecution. Section 8 being your defense in court in case you get arrested. So, this has a big impact on people. First off, let's get back to the brownie thing. So the brownie thing, I've never advised people to make brownies with dried flour or leaf.
Yeah, and I know some people will actually put flowers right into the baked goods. I've seen people use it in certain steps, and then, as you're clarifying the butter, you remove the solid matter and things like that. A lot of the extracts, concentrates I get, you can still see the solid matter in there. There's still parts of the plant in the extract, in the resin that you're getting. So, I mean, for them to say
that like butter and stuff like that.
Exactly. I mean, I can look at butter under a microscope, and depending on how much they strained it, there's still parts of plant matter in there.
Which is, incidentally, by the way, people, butter goes rancid, and so it goes even more rancid more quickly when you have plant matter in that oil, in that fatty matter.
Unfortunate, but true.
So just watch it. It just, if you're going to keep it, it's not going to stay more than a week or two after you make it. You want to make just enough, and then you're going to have to freeze it. If you're not going to use it right away, you have to freeze it. You can't just leave it in the fridge and eat it. You're going to get sick off of it later.
Yeah, you gotta take care of it and store it very well.
Back to the brownie thing. So, because we've only got, what do we got? We got about 8 minutes left. So, when you're making brownies and people make them with extract, why are they doing it with extract instead of plant matter?
Well, the idea is the plant matter. A lot of times they're salvaging parts of the plant that don't necessarily taste the best, like the leaves that have a lot of fats and waxes in them. And so by doing an extract, you're removing a lot of impurities, making the medicine cleaner, safer, better tasting, more palatable for maybe a patient that doesn't like to eat, where you're using the cannabinoid therapy as an appetite stimulant. So in that case, it's really important to have a nice clean butter that doesn't taste foul. And that doesn't taste like you're eating a salad, maybe.
Minus the dressing.
Yeah, a warmed salad.
Right.
Wilted.
With no dressing. You're right. It's not the most palatable thing to crunch on. If you're putting flour in brownies, I always told people they didn't know what they were doing. If you're doing it that way, now that has to be the way you're going to do it if you want Section 4 to apply.
Yeah, it's contradictory to the progress made in the edibles, making good quality product that people can eat and doesn't have maybe an off taste that they're not used to or that they don't like from the marijuana. And now it's sort of like setting us back to a point, well, now we have to figure out how to do it while still leaving a lot of these impurities and these, like cellulose and solid matter in the product. You typically strain and sift food to get crunchiness and things out, and now they're saying, well, you got to leave it in there or else it's illegal.
Right. Well, or you got to rely on your defense in court, which really sucks because it's going to take you like a year to get there, and you're going to have to pay through the nose to get there, and you also can't use your medicine for that whole time because you're going to be on bond.
Yeah, and that's just wrong.
So, what, Rick? Rick's raising his hand. He's like, me, pick me.
So part of the decision in Carruthers was predicated on the state police labs not being able to tell potency or quantity of THC in any particular substance. However, I have a feeling that our testing authorities, like Iron Labs here, are able to do that in the state. Can you confirm that you guys can test for potency and for quantity, please?
Yeah, that's true, and I'm actually applying forensic methods from United Nations. And international forensics labs do have the ability to test for this. So for a forensic lab to say that they can't do it seems like almost like passing the buck. They don't want to, or they don't want to get involved enough to do it. There are plenty of places in the state who are more than willing to do that type of testing for the customer proactively before they get into a court case, you know, for a modest fee, much less than what the forensic labs are going to charge to do less results, I guess.
Right. Well, we were talking about this before air, and I think, you know, when it comes down to this, there's a bit of splitting of hairs going on with this, and I think I've kind of lost my train of thought when you talk about this being Section 4, Section 8, plant matter, concentrate. There was a point that I was going to make, and I just lost the point, so I'm going to give up on that. Well, you know,
too much plant matter.
Yeah, right. No, I've had no plant matter today. I'm very ill today, as a matter of fact, so muddling through as best we can. I think it's important that people understand this topic. Rick, today, you guys talked about this on the Planet Green Trees show last Thursday. Well, you had an emergency show about it. You had like a special program about it. Did you guys ever discuss, you know, the difference between the two versions of medibles, and also, you know, what might be better? And do you ever decide if there's going to be some action on this? I mean, how can we respond to this? I mean, if the Court of Appeals is saying this, we've got to wait for this to go to the Supreme Court, so maybe it'll change. But I think in the meanwhile, we need to take some action somewhere.
Well, the only thing you can do when a decision's made by the Court of Appeals is to appeal it to the Supreme Court. And until that appeal is accepted by the Supreme Court, then the Court of Appeals opinion rules. However, once it's been accepted by the Supreme Court, then the application of that COA opinion stops until it's been decided by the Supreme Court. So at this point, we really only have two methods, and that's to get it to the Supreme Court or to convince the legislature to pass a law that would correct what I think we all would agree would be a really heinous and hideously incorrect decision by the Court of Appeals.
Did this? Did these guys? I mean, are they planning on trying to maybe do something else besides just correct this one thing? Because I think even in the best case scenario, there's not a lot the Supreme Court can do what we need to do to make this right.
Well, actually, what they can do is tell the Court of Appeals that they were incorrect in differentiating usable versus non-usable marijuana. Marijuana is marijuana, and we used to believe for 4 years that if it was in the possession of a patient, then it didn't matter in what form it was usable, protected marijuana. So it's easy for us to have the Supreme Court go back to the way that we were doing things for the last 4 years. But understand why the Court of Appeals made this decision. That makes it very easy for law enforcement. If it doesn't look like regular bud, if it's not rolled into a marijuana joint, then seize it, confiscate it, and potentially arrest them. They don't have to go through training classes. They don't have to get any flashcards to educate them on what Rick Simpson oil is or what is in these black syringes that people are carrying around. If they've got it, and if you can't ID it, seize it. And that's the empowerment that this Court of Appeals opinion is given to law enforcement. And I agree with Ryan 1,000%. This is all about a lack of education, because if they knew that there were people that were going to hold them accountable for their decisions, I think the COA judges may have made different decisions.
Well, and, you know, it is just a definition they're working with. I mean, Exactly. I mean, if it was me, I'd have ruled a different way. I'd have looked at this in a different way. But they do have that choice.
But these non-legislative means of correcting what they perceive to be errors in the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act, just like dissolving the the new conditions panel from the doctors that Lara did, just like waiving all of the decisions that they'd made previously, and just like denying disabled persons the $25 discount, simply from a different interpretation of existent rules. So they didn't have to change a word of the law.
You're telling me that the thing that reduced for people that were getting the discount, the $25 fee instead of the $100 fee, that was actually they had reinterpreted it?
What they did was, Steve Arwood came in as director of LARA, and he said, we're going to reinterpret the administrative rules. The administrative rules only allowed that discount to people who were financially disadvantaged. We all assumed that because you were disabled, that meant that you were financially disadvantaged also. That's why it was included along with it. But what they said was, if you're disabled, you could still afford the full $100, because if you're financially disadvantaged, you'd be a member of one of those other programs that would still qualify you for the $25 discount. So a lot of people ended up sending in the wrong amount of money because they were used to doing it the standard old way, and those applications got rejected, and they found themselves temporarily without the provisions and protections of the Act because of a paperwork thing that they were never informed of that changed.
Something should be done to address that, too. Let's get back, because we only got about 3 minutes, 4 minutes tops left in this segment. And I got to thank you, Joe, for coming on and talking about this.
Yeah, no problem.
What is this? I mean, just in a way of testing, what would you say the percentages of concentrates versus flower goes?
Flowers are all around like 10 to 20%, maybe a little.
No. I meant ratio versus, between the two. Yeah, how much flour versus how much concentrate?
A third of our samples were concentrates. I don't know how that's going to affect things now.
So about 33%.
Yeah, about 30% is totally all.
That's significant.
Yeah, that's a big portion of the samples on the market there. And ultimately, the concentrates are the most important ones to have tested because there's such a big range at which that they could fall under. They could be anywhere from 30% to being 80% in strength.
Do you know, just as an off-subject question, but it does relate to cannabis testing, because I've always been kind of curious. When you do an extract, like say a hash oil extract, just because I think each of these could work differently, but just overall, if you're doing a solvent extract, are you getting all CBDs, or are you just getting? Are you getting all cannabinoids, or are you just getting THC and CBD?
It depends. A lot of factors affect the extraction, and the extraction becomes selective towards what it pulls out more of. Most of the methods out there that people are using are just like cooking, and making a tea and fusing something with it. And different solvents in this case, or liquids that you could use would have different affinities, different abilities to pull each one out, and are going to
depends on what you use.
Yeah, it depends on what you use. Some are going to pull out more THC, some are going to pull out more CBD, but it's all relatively the same. It's more along the lines of how much it's going to pull out with each, wash.
And there are more cannabinoids than just THC and CBD. Yes.
Yeah, there's CBG, CBC. There's a whole plethora of them. They're all very trace and in small amounts.
Right.
The THC or the CBD is what the plants are producing the majority of.
Right.
But the other ones all have synergistic effects that work along with the THC.
Well, it's I guess if you're comparing it to something like wine, it would be variants of red wines, variants of white wines, all based on the grape, the year, the weather,
it's still
all that
all
stuff.
Alcohol.
Right.
Exactly.
But all those nuances make a major effect on what you end up with and whether or not you like it.
Very much. It may give you a terrible hangover the next day or a headache. And it all depends on what you're sensitive to in the wine. Some wines have tannins and you can't have reds because of it. So some people won't eat.
Go Joe! That's all I got to say to you with Iron Labs. Tell people real quick how can they find you if they want to do Iron Labs?
Check out our website, ironlabsllc.co, or give us a call at 248-757-TEST.
Awesome. Thanks. We'll be right back. More on the Political Twist-Up Show. Barb Agro coming up next. The Political Twist-Up Show.
If you or someone you know received a traffic ticket, has been charged with a misdemeanor, drinking and driving, criminal offense, or has had their driver's license taken away, they need an attorney. They need attorney Glenn McCandless. He's helped hundreds of people solve their legal problems over the past 16 years.
My law firm is dedicated to providing quality legal services at affordable rates.
Call us at 586-755-2900. Again, that's 586-755-2900. Call now.
Are you looking for medical marijuana professionals in Michigan and do not know where to turn? Visit mmma.biz. For a directory listing of products and services, search through the medical marijuana businesses at mmma.biz. That's mmma.biz.
The Political Twist-Up Radio Show. We're back live at the Iron Labs studio. We are powered by the Metro Detroit Compassion Club here at Iron Labs in Walled Lake, Michigan, right out in front of the store. I mean, you can't miss it.
Maple in Pontiac Trail.
There you go. So, It's a lot of stuff going on this week. A lot of stuff been happening. When you have to have emergency radio shows to talk about subjects, I mean, we didn't do it, but, Planet Green Trees did. So that means there's a lot of stuff going on. One of the things that's happening right now, our beloved Barb Agro, let me just recap the Barb Agro situation. Barb worked for Clinical Relief in Ferndale, was arrested as a part of a raid that happened there under the Bill Schuette, camp in Oakland County. Bill Schuette's our Attorney General here in Michigan, for those who don't know. They raided the dispensary, and then they talked to Barb while they were there, ended up extracting information out of her, and then ended up raiding her house. I mean, it was just an awful situation. Her husband, God rest his soul, is gone now after this happened. This happened shortly after me as they were being hauled off to... God, poor guy's the heart.
That's ugly.
So it's now Barb's she'd been convicted as a felon, and the Court of Appeals, or was it the Supreme Court? Court of Appeals? Who did it? Somebody. It was reversed. Rick's trying to get a hold of...
The Court of Appeals bumped Barb's case back to a lower court. They said that Oakland County had improperly denied her the opportunity to have her medical marijuana patient status heard, and therefore they're forcing Oakland County to redo the case. The problem arises in that Oakland County doesn't want to redo the case, so they're dragging their feet. Hence, Barb's got to take them to court in order to force an action on their part.
Well, you know why Oakland County doesn't want to do the case? First off, they think they won. Second off, now they're going to lose.
Well, let's look at what the Court of Appeals said. The Court of Appeals said your felony conviction, Barb Agro, is done. They took it right off the thing. They commuted the felony and said until you get a fair trial, we're not going to count you as a felon like that. Fortunately, and that, by the way, took place in 2010, which was just before Bill Schuette came into office. Those raids helped to push him into a successful election cycle in November of 2010.
So basically, the double jeopardy thing doesn't apply to Barb now, because that's why she's going back to trial, because they vacated her first conviction.
Exactly correct. Because they said it was an improper court procedure, they're going to do it all over again, or not.
She was expecting originally to go back to trial in May. It is now July. It's been postponed again.
Yes, and there's been some postponements on her part because of situations, but also on the other side too. But Paul Tylenda, the attorney on the case, Paul is live on the radio with us right now and can update us. Paul, how are you today?
Hey, Rick. Hey, Stephen. How are you?
I'm terrific. Ryan's here as well. We want to know, Paul, what's the significance of this aside from freeing poor Barb, getting her detached from all of this crap and put it behind her, because she never did anything wrong in the first place. I think everybody's of that opinion.
Well, the problem is that the very fine line that she was ultimately found, that she was convicted by, was the fact that her house, first off, wasn't locked. The front door wasn't locked at the time the police showed up. There's still a lot of people in the world that don't lock their doors.
Well, and they only discovered the unlocked door because they came over to do a raid. Yes.
Correct.
And Sal was gone. Sal had gone over to protect his kids that were also being raided. His grandkids.
Right. And the unlocked door is ultimately irrelevant, other than in the marijuana case, and the fact that the basement itself wasn't an excluded area. It wasn't the enclosed locked facility. Now, the problem in all of this is the restrictions or the definitions of an enclosed locked facility didn't exist at the time of the police raid, but it only existed, I believe, at the time during the pretrial phase and ultimately the trial. So she was excluded from it because, she was over the limit and the like. And then she was being prevented from asserting the affirmative defense and having the jury instructed.
I'm guilty, but I have a reason, and it's an acceptable reason. That's what the affirmative defense is, right, Paul?
Right, correct. Well, it's ultimately yes. You are saying, yes, I did this, but here is my legal defense to it. I had a good legal reason. I met the qualifications of this legal defense.
It's the same. It's kind of the. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. It's kind of the same thing that Zimmerman just did, right? Hey, I killed this guy. I did it, but I didn't mean to. I didn't want to, but he was going to hurt me or kill me if I didn't do it to him. That's what he said.
Ultimately, the thinking is the same. Self-defense is the affirmative defense that everybody is most familiar with, because in that situation, yes, you're charged with murder. However, you get to assert the fact that, hey, ultimately, this is what happened, and I admit to doing these actions that could consist of murder. However, my actions are justified. And it's the same way as to say, you use marijuana for medical purposes, thereby you get to at least assert that defense to say that your actions in having the marijuana are justified, and that's what Barb was denied. And that was a very common practice at the time in that certain court to prevent people from asserting the defense or any mention of medical marijuana from a very early point in the pretrial phase. And then as that trick started to become more known, then it became a later development in later pretrial phases and might be one of the last motions that you get. But now that the court has come out and said, the Supreme Court's come out and said that ultimately you do get your Section 8 and you do have to assert it, procedurally proper. You're not going to, those courts aren't able to get away with those tricks. Right. And deny you the ability at least to try to get your day in court, because that was Barb's problem, is that, other than having a hearing that didn't provide her much relief because of the standard of the law at the time, she was prevented from asserting it at all. And in a case like that, the jury got it. The jury knew what was going on. They even asked a few times if that's what was going on, if she was, certainly able to possess it. And because it had already been ruled on and it wasn't deemed relevant, that was ultimately unanswered to the jury and told it's not something to consider. So it really has to do with what the jury is told they can consider. It has to do with the question they're asked, because they can only respond to the question that they are asked. So if you don't get to present that question, was this medical, did this person comply with the law, is there an issue that takes them outside of this Medical Marijuana Act, it's the jury's decision, but at least they get the opportunity to make the decision based off of a medical marijuana decision and not, did you possess marijuana, yes or no.
Since the Barb Agro case, and we got to thank Barb at least for this, and yourself as well, Paul, because you guys ended up, this was kind of a test case, wasn't it? Didn't it kind of set a precedent with you guys?
Ultimately, it just sort of reinforced what the Supreme Court ultimately had concluded was, hey, if you're going to ask for this hearing, you have to get the hearing. And there were some other collateral issues in Barb's case that really could have been had a little more impact, but the case wasn't published, so it doesn't have any sort of precedent other than being certainly argue for argument or to be persuasive. But what we're seeing now, and especially like in Barb's case, is you're getting bounced back. All these cases that were denied these Section 8 in these defense hearings are getting bounced back and saying, okay, have your Section 8 hearing. And that's ultimately where the courts want things to be. They want to develop this Section 8 aspect of it to determine, okay, go there and assert it. Have the judge determine if you qualify under this, or you're lucky enough to take it to a trial, or perhaps unlucky enough to take it to a trial.
Are you finding that people are getting a chance now to, are you seeing more cases like this where they've been denied an affirmative defense, or, they dance around this subject at all, or is this pretty much straightforward, everybody gets an affirmative defense now?
Everybody is, I haven't seen a Section 8 defense, a request for it, denied. The judges that, in the counties throughout this part of Michigan, essentially you ask for it and you get it. And that's what the judge's understanding is. And it becomes a difficult process because a Section 8 hearing is a big hearing. And by big, I mean it's time-consuming, it's expensive, it requires a lot, testimony from people who you need to be cooperative, and sometimes they're not.
So we're talking about doctors, specifically doctors, right?
Specifically, and that's I tell you what, I think that's the biggest problem, and it benefits the prosecutor because, like I said, in these affirmative defense hearings, we are presenting the defense, so it is our burden to meet this hurdle that we qualify through Section 8. And the first part of that, you got to bring your doctor in. And if your doctor either doesn't show up, doesn't want to show up, or worse yet, is one of these doctors that's been charged criminally by one of these creative prosecutors, or has been chased out of town, or just plainly isn't interested or willing to testify. I've had subpoenas served on doctors, and they've said, okay, well, you're going to hear from my lawyer because I'm not going to show up and it doesn't matter.
I'm not going to show up and it doesn't matter. That's a fine how do you do?
And depending on certainly you can have the authority, can ask the judge to enforce the subpoena.
Yeah, but then they're a hostile witness, aren't they?
Well, they're just not very willing. And a lot of the doctors now are realizing that, well, the version of Section 3 that was redefined in April 1st, which includes the bona fide relationship, narrowly defines ultimately the scope of the questioning that you can get away with or that you need to, and also considering the Redden opinion as how these relationships are defined. So once you establish the doctor-patient relationship, and once you can clear that first part of Section 8, the other two prongs are typically, well, not typically, but would be a little more easy to satisfy depending on who your witnesses are.
Is there a way we get 2 minutes left in this segment, Paul. Is there a way we could better handle this in the courts? Do you have any suggestions on how to streamline this, make it less expensive? Could we put a mandate in place? What can we do?
It comes down, to a cautionary tale to be able to pick your doctors wisely. A lot of people will choose a doctor because of the ease or efficiency or cost at which they can acquire their certification.
Number one choice rule, cost. That's the first thing that people think about when they're, seriously, that's what people choose is the cost. They don't think about, is this doctor going to show up in court to testify for me?
Well, and that thing is, or what kind of situation, like I see these, you would see them in the past. I haven't looked around lately, but these fly-by-night certification clinics where, hey, let's go to a convention or an expo or something.
The traveling ones.
And attend these traveling places because those particular facts become necessary in court where you ask the doctor, hey, where'd you see him? I don't know, some tent. Did you have the intent of seeing him? I don't know. There,
Wow.
They're not good even if you do get them, so it's circumstances.
Paul, I'm terribly sorry, Paul, that we're unable to hear you at this point because the music is blaring over you. It's not my fault. You're plugged into the same pot. We got to run to break. Thanks for coming on and explaining this subject to you. I got two things to wrap up. We'll be back in a minute with LJ from Advanced Nutrients, our Ask the Gardener segment next on the Political Twist-Up Show. This is the Multimedia Digital Network. The Political Twist-Up Show.
Well, this formula is specifically to grow cannabis.
That's Ray Kogo for Kogo's Original Cannabis Formula Nutrients.
Now, everybody knows that large buds and tight buds come from genetics, and then the amount of light you use. The other part is having the correct nutrients that the plant's going to use. Mine specifically to grow cannabis, so it's going to get everything that it needs.
Ray knows what you may not. Those nutrient companies you can get in most grow shops are not cannabis specific. That means they take the stuff out of the bloom that your plant needs in bloom. You can get Kogo's Original Cannabis Formula Nutrients too. It's just 2 1-gallon jugs that make over 600 gallons of nutrients, all for less than $100. See the difference for yourself.
More trichomes, bigger buds, faster growth, and for less money.
Go to CANNABISformula.com or call Ray direct at 517-375-8998. That's 517-375-8998. Kogo's Original Cannabis Formula Nutrients.
Get everything you need at Hydrovision Indoor Gardening Centers. It's summertime, and the best of what you need for indoor and outdoor gardening is at your local Hydrovision store, where your indoor gardening dreams come true outside too. Equipment and supplies, they got it. Nearby locations, they got it. And the friendly, helpful staff is full of answers to all your gardening needs. Hydrovision. Get great prices. Mention my name, Steve Green, for a special discount. Hydrovision Indoor Gardening Centers in Howell, Fenton, Richmond, Trenton, and Belleville, one near you, or go to myhydrovision.com.
The Political Twist-Up Radio Show.
Okay, so we're back. Can somebody call LJ for me? Can you get LJ on the phone? It's the Political Twist-Up Show. We are out at the Iron Lab studio today just talking about this business with the medibles and the Court of Appeals decision. And Barb Agro and her situation, and then also we talked about ASA and the
national
appeal.
scene. Yep.
And so we got to get LJ on the phone to talk about gardening. I wanted to give you Paul Tylenda's number in case you've got a legal problem or an issue and you're in the Southeast Lower Michigan area. You can give him a call. I'm sure he could refer you into another attorney if you're out of the area. Rick, what's the number for Paul?
I've been in the game for a couple of years. Paul's tops, that's for sure.
He's really good.
313-802-9873. That's Paul Tylenda. 313-802-9873.
And then we were going to give him some information. We were going to give. I forgot to do Iron Labs.
As far as Iron Labs goes, what a fantastic segment we had here with Joe. We've got, of course, there are our lab sponsors here too. You can call Iron Labs 248-757-TEST. They're located right here in Walled Lake, right associated with the H2 Hydro store. As well as a couple of other services that they provide. There's also a certification center here as well. Plus, Rebel Glass. I just love the name of that place, Rebel Glass. So lots of reasons to come visit the place out here in Walled Lake.
Well, and I mentioned before that you can find them at ironlabslcc.com, or it's easier if you just go to politicaltwistup.com and click on the link. There's a click here. It says Iron Labs.
Yep,
click
right on
the
the front of the page.
It'll take you right to their site. It's a badass site. I mean, it's really good. They publish your picture of your product and all kinds of stuff. You can hide it. You can make it public. It's really, really good.
You can even see some completed test results so that you can see what your test results are going to look like to make sure that you're getting it exactly what you want.
Okay, with us on the phone is LJ from Advanced Nutrients. Welcome back to the program, LJ.
Hey guys, how are you?
Hello.
We're doing good.
Hey, LJ.
Glad to have you back again. I'm sorry we didn't get a chance to get to you last week. You got pushed off by subject.
Not at all, man. It's I'm stoked to be back.
Hey, I wanted to ask you about variety. If you grow, do you notice a difference in one strain versus another when you're using your nutrients? I mean, do some plants like certain things and other plants don't? I've noticed that some plants I have are picky.
Yeah, no, I feel the same way. I was just kind of absorbing the question for a sec. It's an interesting one. I believe that the stuff, sorry, I overheard you on the radio in the background. No, I believe that different plants will take different things. Like OG, for instance, is really into CalMag. You've got to have huge CalMag levels in order for it to absorb the other nutrients present, which is kind of funky. So, yeah, I'd have to say, yes, strains will take different things and run with them. Different strains need different care.
Well, and I noticed parts per million is real important for some strains. Some strains you can pop the parts per million up to 2,500. I've had it up as high as 2,500 without affecting the plant in a bad way. Other plants won't take that.
Bury the meter with a Blue Dream. I mean, it's out of control. I bet the reader just needs to read solid dashes across the board. Take it.
Blue Dream does that? I did not know that.
Oh, it's an outrageous nutrient. You can just pound her with it, and she'll love you for it. It's a joke. No matter how hard you hit her, she just keeps coming back for more. Whereas the OG is totally the other way. The OG, you better, come on
Baby
real soft and, romance her, or you're going to fail, you know?
Wow. I noticed, 707 headband, that's a little picky sometimes. It does not like to get over. You get... Same thing with...
I'm pretty sure there's OG in that.
Yeah, well, you're right about that.
OG is part of the cross, dude. It's going to have that OG inherency where it wants to be treated a certain way, you know?
Purple cheddar's a lot like that.
Thing is such a tip. Make sure you use CalMag with OGs. Otherwise, it'll literally just hurt you so bad not using CalMag. You won't yield anything. Then just simply adding CalMag, boom. It's incredible.
Ryan had a question for you.
Hey, LJ.
Hey.
I recently took some clones off a friend's grow. He had a powder mold issue on some of his plants. I have these plants now growing. They're rooted, vegging very nicely. I've seen no sign of the powder mold. Is it a guarantee that it's in the plant if it's been in that room, or is it something that can be...
Yes, sir. That particular plant will be stuck with it for life, and anything that you cut off of it has that powdery mildew kind of ingrained in her. You know what I mean? Now, most OG, for instance, again, back to that, OG is extremely susceptible to powdery mildew.
So, like, you can run the strain forever, even with the powdery mildew, as long as you keep it in check and keep your humidity levels good. I mean, it won't slow you down. Just know that the plant will produce it if you set up the environment to, enable it.
Hey, you notice
Gotcha.
I've noticed a great thing for powdery mildew now that you guys brought this subject up. Powdery mildew does not like high pH values. So if you take just plain water and put some advanced nutrients pH up in there and get it up to about 8.3 and give you a nice foliar spray, gone, done. I mean, it's still in the plant, but the sexual organ of it, which is the powdery mildew itself, that's what's spreading it around, is completely gone. Refreshes the leaf back to almost normal.
Nice.
So that's a good way to get rid of it right away.
Powdery mildew.
Oh, I'm sorry, you said there's all kinds of treatments?
Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff you can do for powdery mildew. There's all kinds of different stuff on the shelves at the hydro store. I actually heard that South America, they use milk, like a 30% milk to water ratio, and spray it.
What?
Baking soda is an old one. Just, you can do so many different
Well,
things.
baking soda is the alkaline thing. I mean, that's taking the pH up.
Yeah, that's exact same thing, same difference. Same thing you were talking about. But yeah.
I've seen some people to use the sulfur burners to do. I just would never suggest that.
It sounds ugly.
Sulfur, in my mind, is more preventative, though. You use it, you run it preventatively until you got the outbreak. Then you have to do something about it and beyond the sulfur burner.
I'm just saying, sulfur is a pretty noxious chemical, and or it's a pretty noxious element, and it
puts dust everywhere in the room, which is
right.
My least favorite part, outside of the stench, of course. But the dust is another thing to contend with.
And then also, it can kind of, if you don't do it right, you can kind of spoil your flavor. I mean, you're going to end up with sulfur on your flour if you do it wrong.
You don't want to take it all the way into the ending parts of flour or anything, but you can get away with it through most of the flour.
Right. So, what other tips of the trade tricks the trade you got for us? Tips, LJ. What else is new in the advanced nutrient world?
You know what? We're coming out with the Fat 4-pack, and it's just incredible. Like tarantula, piranha, voodoo juice, and bud candy. And we're going to be packaging them up in one box. And we've never done anything like this before. We've never made it so affordable for everybody to get these just knockout, microbial, beneficial type of, setups. I mean, they can do. This is so, like the tarantula has 10 million colonies per gram. It's just very potent, very strong stuff, and it absolutely will make your plant thrive. I mean, the root inoculation will just kill it with this product, and we've made it cheap, so I'm stoked. A lot of people are going to be able to get this and use it now, and it's more affordable for the masses. So I'm really happy that they did that.
Is this available now, and what's the price of it?
It's $99, and it'll be available, I think, in the next few weeks, probably.
Wait, whoa! Let me just get this straight. Now, are these smaller bottles, or are they regular 1-quart bottles?
They're not 1 liter. They're a little bit smaller, but I think they're 500s, half-liter bottles.
So they're half liter, but still $99 for all. Because look, the voodoo juice in the 1 liter jug is over. Yeah, it's like $100 plus by the time you pay tax all by itself.
But it's called voodoo.
Well, that's it. So that's why it's special for us. Like I said, I mean, 10 million colonies per gram. That is very, very potent. We have a lot of research. 23 PhDs on staff testing cannabis 24/7. Like. Our stuff is a little bit more expensive than the competition. However, in our world, there's not a lot of competition. We're the only ones doing it for cannabis. So,
LJ, we got about a minute left. If people want to figure out some stuff about advanced nutrients, check out the different packages and programs, the stuff that you guys have going on. What's the best way to do that? If I wanted to buy some advanced nutrients and start tinkering, start understanding what the programs are, where can I go to find that information out?
We have some video content, but I'd encourage you to go to our website. We really take the time to explain everything down. There's white papers and just lots of support facts. And maybe if you're on the fence and not sure about us, maybe you do want to do a little bit more reading, and all of that stuff is there. There's one other website too. If you search the phosphorus myth, it's growersunderground.com. That's another one that's just full of stuff.
Growers Underground.
It's incredible.
I tell you what, I got to cut you short a little bit here because the music started, and unfortunately I got the phones tied in with the same thing the music comes from, so we're going to have a hard time hearing you with the music running. LJ, thanks for coming on. Appreciate it. We'll talk to you after the show. Let me give you a call after the show, LJ.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys. Take it easy, and another great show. See ya.
Thank you very much. We'll talk to LJ again real soon. Almost knocked the phone down. I cannot do that. That's an $800 phone. I gotta thank you for coming and listening to us today. I think we talked about a lot of stuff. At least gave you a lot of stuff to consider and think about.
I had a great time. Thank you. Thank you to LJ, Iron Lab Studios, the Detroit Metro Compassion Club.
You get that backwards. Metro Detroit Compassion Club. There you go.
I want to smack the babies and kiss the hands too. So,
Rick, any last parting words?
Listen, every week we have the opportunity to come out and do these things.
We'll see you next week.